Hello, everybody. There's this eerie pause of knowing when all the different social channels have clicked in. Hello and welcome to the Daily Sip. It's Monday. Hope you had a lovely weekend with all this warm sunshine we've been blessed with over the weekend. And today it's real kind of catching up with a mate, to be honest. Dom and I have known each other over the years and we've worked on different projects, and he's just a really good bloke and I always love hanging out with him. So yeah, really excited to catch up on a personal, selfish level, but I think also for you guys, it's going to be some really interesting topics around media, technology, new technologies, and obviously all around inclusion and disability. So without further ado, Dom, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. As you say, it's a nice opportunity for us to chin wag for a little while. So
we've been all about doing a pub beer catch up for ages, and it just eludes us, doesn't it?
We're going to have loads of beers to catch up on when we finally do make it to a pub.
Carnage.
Yeah, have to be there for the weekend.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, mate. Well, yeah, I mean, we were saying before we went live, but for those that don't know, I've interviewed Dom on a podcast. So for a sort of much more in-depth look at Dom's journey, definitely do have a look at on the Martin Sibley Show audio-only podcast. But I think there's going to be a few people that won't have heard that, may not have come into contact, Dom. So if you could give us a bit of a précis of, what's your name and where you come from.
Yeah, sure. So kind of out of university, went into TV production, and went to a sports production company, Sunset and Vine, that were producing the Paralympics in 2012. And that was a massive pull for me to go and work on that. And still to this day, that was one of the most incredible things to work on. And yeah, I kind of carry those memories through till today, and stayed working in kind of sports TV production, and then kind of moving slightly towards the digital side of that, kind of managing big YouTube channels like for the actual IOC Olympics and things like that. And then sidestepped into working for a company, Assistive, which maybe quite a few of you have heard of. So a digital accessibility app that began in around 2015. So I moved across there to basically do all their communications and marketing, and then stayed with Assistive, and then that became Grid up until this summer. And then this summer, I've actually, because of the brand new world we live in and COVID, I'm actually set to be leaving Grid Smarter Cities. Unfortunately, with the team needing to downsize, I was made redundant. And so for me now, it's kind of an exciting time where I'm actually really looking forward to just essentially taking those skills that I've learned over the years and my genuine passion for all things kind of digital media branding. And I'm going to set up my own kind of I'm calling it the Tiny Man Digital Agency. Nice. And it's going to be essentially marketing, communications, and design agency. And I'm just going to not be too stressed about how that kind of ship navigates in the short term, and just very excited about what the future is going to hold, and just basically be open and embrace all new possibilities and all new experiences, really.
Yeah. No, that's obviously, I guess, for those that have heard the podcast or generally know what you've been up to, the sort of news is obviously that change of career going on, not career, but of employment. And I think, as we were talking about it a couple of times before we went live, it's never nice to have to leave a place because of a sort of COVID related, economic related reasons for you, and I'm sure for the guys at the company as well. But new opportunities, new adventures. I think you've got a lot of amazing experiences and knowledge under your belt that are going to be very valuable to other, whether they are employers or clients, if you're going more freelance. And I think we'll get into all the ins and outs of it as we go through this today. But just on that very specific note, I think there'll be plenty of demand for what you need, and just see it as a cool adventure and where it takes you, and quite right, not get too worried and fearful because it's just a weird world at the moment.
Yeah, I was furloughed for a couple of months, sort of from May till, well, technically now I'm furloughed as well. So for these few months, I've been kind of keeping myself very busy, doing some e-commerce websites for people, some brand identities, some kind of more standard websites, and then kind of managing some sort of marketing digital campaigns like Facebook ads, Google AdWords, that kind of thing. And I've just been really enjoying it. That kind of that one-on-one relationship with the client and kind of taking their pain points and turning them into a solution has been a lot of fun. And so for me, it's just about kind of seeing how far and how quickly that can grow, and sort of taking those pain points of people that are growing because of the COVID world and having to, there's plenty of people that are still needing to digitize and kind of behind the curve of that in terms of their business model and that kind of thing. And so it's taking those skills that, largely everything I've done has been focused on the digital world in the last sort of 10 years. And so it's kind of seeing the problem and then how we can solve it by moving it online, really. So that's kind of the premise of what I'm going to be doing. And it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And obviously, I always try and sort of focus on a key tenet of each guest. And, there definitely is sort of, we could have gone down a digital marketing route, which it very much is. And they all overlap at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you look at media as a sort of, a way that information travels, it was not digital internet, like, it was print, magazine, newspaper, and it's all evolved. TV, radio, and now online. And so I think that evolution of media is quite fascinating. And then technology was always very sort of hardware, bit of software, but it was a bit separate from media. Whereas now,
it's one and the same.
It's all the same, pretty much, isn't it? And as you alluded to with COVID-19, like the power of the smartphone.
This has just blown the world apart, really, in terms of the power of what mobile phones can do, and the fact that I always see someone taking a selfie, and I just think 12 years ago you would have been actually laughed at in the street if you were taking a selfie. It would just be surreal thing to see someone taking a selfie, and now it's like they're designing phones specifically for that activity, and that of human development and digital development, it's so fast. Like when we think of the evolution of obviously Twitter and Instagram and these platforms that are now so big, and how they kind of dictate how we manage our days, and so it's just kind of about, for a lot of people now, they're realizing that it's not something they can avoid. This kind of digital interaction. We look at supermarkets, for example, and they're saying, things have now gone digital, or most of our shopping is going to be digital now and ordering online. And that's going to probably stay. Some people have had to change their behaviors and learn to change their behaviors in the last couple of months, and now they're going to be used to it. And the idea of going to the supermarket, driving 10 minutes and then spending an hour and a half in the supermarket and driving home, rather than kind of editing a list through a week and pressing enter at midday on a Monday, is going to be something they kind of don't change anymore.
Even that halfway house, like click and collect, we had a delivery and the lorry broke down and all the food basically got spoiled. They said, we can't get it to you, and then we can't go and pick it all again and deliver it because our slots are booked. So I thought, well, I'll have a look at this click and collect, because I just don't want to go in the supermarket at the moment, like most people,
of course,
or many, shall we say. And I literally, to your point about click of a button, I could take that order that had been spoiled and just transfer it as a new click and collect, and then Kasha just went and picked up the bags, and that was that. So, even if it's not 100% home delivery, just that whole not having a list, and like you can just start to put it all digitally remembered and reminded and suggested. Like that starts to really kind of ramp in as a behaviour, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then obviously the clothes shopping and that kind of thing for people, again, that's going to be completely changed. And I know that so much is an unknown now, but you have to be very fearful for just what our high street's going to look like
I know that is
in a year, 2 years, because ultimately, until we have a vaccine, you can't see there being the great demand to go shopping like we are doing at the moment, just because that kind of whole experience is going to be tainted slightly. Similar with going on a pub crawl or something like that. It's just not going to be the same experience for a large period of time still. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And therefore these sort of companies that are, they're hanging on really at the moment. In a year's time, are they going to be still hanging on? And so I think everyone has to be kind of able to just not just to. I suppose it's just accept that the world is going to be changing dramatically. We're in that cycle at the moment. It's kind of exponentially things are sort of changing on a daily basis, and we have to just kind of go, okay, this is another strange thing on another strange thing, and you just kind of roll your sleeves up and just have to get stuck in. And so for these businesses that aren't digital yet or haven't been digital, let's say a wholesaler or a greengrocer or a pest control business, these kind of businesses that have done everything kind of word of mouth or with just neighbors and delivering leaflets, that kind of thing. All of that, slowly that behavior is going to be changing, and people just going straight for the online approach to everything now. So it's for me it's kind of seeing those opportunities to take these businesses and actually handhold them through the process of giving them a digital platform, really.
Yeah, because it is a bit, I've never been so into the Darwinian theory of survival of the fittest, because it slightly, doesn't chime as well when you have a disability. On the
Absolutely.
other side, like in business, it is a bit like adapt or die, and that sounds very scary or a bit not like a bit, I don't know, just a bit negative sounding, but it is ultimately true that if consumer trends change and the business doesn't change with it, they won't have customers, they won't have revenue, so they'll go out of business.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it's as kind of simple as that. Really, it's from my perspective, and things are changing almost daily. So it's not like you can kind of say this is definitely going to happen, and that's part of it. It's the ambiguity, it's the unknown.
It's a bit like a game of chess, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And all you can do is put yourself in the best situation at any given time and be open to that change at any given time. And that absolutely is kind of what the approach I'm going to try and take, and sort of handhold other people through that change as well.
Yeah. Cool. We love a bit of audience participation, Dom. We've got a few comments. So Kevin says hello, and then he goes on to say, I remember at college many years ago, a teacher telling us one day we won't put our phone to our ear to listen. We'll be looking at people with cameras on our phones. The whole class just laughed. Didn't seem realistic at the time. So that's what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, and unbelievable.
Chris is saying, how will a virtual pub crawl look? Asking for a friend. Any thoughts on that, Dom?
I mean, I think a lot of us have done the virtual Zoom quiz nights that essentially end up being sort of like a pub night, don't they?
Yeah.
Everyone with their different drink of choice, different poison, and then the sort of after a certain time the games kind of stop and maybe the drinks continue. But yeah, the virtual pub crawl, when you're actually wanting to support these pubs, I don't know. That's definitely an untapped thing. I know there was virtual wine tastings, and
I was going to say there are experiences that are being done virtually.
Yeah, so the virtual wine tasting is still something I've not done yet, but I'm very game for it. So maybe we have to become slightly more sophisticated and turn our pint in a pub to a virtual wine tasting, and that could be the dream.
Yeah,
Never
I'm
look
running
back.
a group for the SMA charity, my particular impairment SMA,
Yeah.
for the sort of adults, but we've found a little bit of an energy by getting the young adults as part of the organising committee. I really showed my age the other day. I was like, we'll do a theme quiz, right? Like I was thinking maybe we do a 90s quiz because I've been all like nostalgic lately listening to like the 90s and that. And they were like, well, we were born in 97. So we've had to move it to a noughties quiz just to like, you know, cater for the younger kids.
But that's not your specialist subject anymore, is it?
No, unfortunately not, mate. But no, but we're going to do a virtual pub, just to bring it back to your point, was for this, like, every adults with SMA, we're going to just get together on Zoom, bring a drink, but like just have a bit of a chat, you know, and you say maybe a quiz. I know Chris was a bit winky, tongue in cheek as well, but you know, we are finding ways to do these things, and I think it's interesting with the disability, and that's what I'll just quickly say hi to you from Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, nice to see you.
I think there's sort of 2 points I want to get a bit more into. So one, you mentioned working on the Paralympics and then working on the Assist Me app that, you know, evolved into different companies in different forms. But what started out as Assist Me, so both are very disability sort of related.
Yeah.
You obviously have a disability yourself. So was that by design and the sort of social mission, or was there an element of like you had a skill set and a passion and you just found yourself more easily working with disability related stuff?
I think there was a moment, and I think we talked about this in the podcast we did. There was a kind of moment, maybe when I was at university, and it suddenly dawned on me from kind of a youth, my teenage years, of almost doing everything in my power to be, and I'm going to use air quotes, normal. In inverted quotes, and because everything with regard to my friendship group, the kind of activities I did, it just felt normal. And so I didn't almost relate on a daily basis to being disabled, however crazy that might seem. It just was kind of the way it was. And when I was 18, me and my mates, we went interrailing around Europe, and they were kind of throwing me around the trains like a bag of luggage, you know. But it wasn't something I would have been able to do if I didn't have those mates that just kind of would do everything they needed to do to help me out. And it was just a given that they would do that. And absolutely, I knew how unbelievably lucky and fortunate I was to find myself with that group of friends. But at the same time, it just meant that the kind of disability stuff didn't really come up that much. Although obviously, you know, it wasn't like I was shirking away from who I was and you know, having brittle bones.
That's always a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, there's absolutely a balance, but it just didn't feel like something I wanted to kind of throw my energy into until I kind of got to the university. And then I don't know how it came about, but I ended up kind of mentoring people that were coming into university when I was further through the university, just about the experience as a disabled student. I did some kind of work for the disability department. I think I did a research project for them, and kind of integrated me into the kind of disabled life of the university. And then it just kind of, I don't know, I suppose it's just maturity, that it just meant that I realized that actually all the privilege I've had in my life of, you know, just these great experiences, this amazing independence, the security in who I was, and the kind of passion for, you know, just doing stuff that can benefit others as well. You know, whether it's about disability or not, it made me kind of, I suppose, not with this light bulb moment or anything, but just suddenly I got a lot of kind of satisfaction out of actually sort of working in the disabled space, seeing those kind of injustices and wanting to support them and help them. Absolutely, you know, as soon as I was working in TV, you see limited disabled representation.
Yeah.
And so again, something like working on the Paralympics, so like personally, I knew that something like the Paralympics is going to put a lot of disabled bodies on people's screens. It's going to start at least conversations and openness
Which
about
it definitely did.
disability. Yeah, and for me, it's all about that honesty and openness with people that creates the kind of greatest sort of change in mindset. And that's something I've always done, is I've always been extremely kind of open and willing for anyone to ask any questions, and I don't mind if people mess up when they say things in the wrong way. On a personal level, of course, like everyone's different, and that's absolutely has to be acknowledged and appreciated as well. But so then I kind of just naturally kind of moved into that world, and when it came to the Paralympics, I kind of have been working on it for the 3 years leading up to 2012, and so by the time it got to 2012, I kind of knew all the people, the stars of the games inside out, and knew all the sports. I was basically the kind of in-house anorak on disability sport come 2012 to the production team, and that was great. And then that kind of just set me on this sort of path, working more in disability. I was the founding editor of the Disability Power 100 when it was produced by Powerful Media before Shore Trust, and that again was just something I was amazingly proud to be part of, and was just this great kind of concept of celebrating disabled talent and the diverse world of disability and the amazing things people do in that world. And yeah, it's just kind of just naturally then moved in that way, and I've got a lot of satisfaction out of the things I've been doing, and I think that's really important in life, to realize what fulfills you and try and as much as possible to do those things that really fulfill you, and so that's kind of why I've always stayed in and around that world, and kind of tried to do my bit, I suppose.
Yeah, you're right. I think we did touch on it on the podcast, but I'm really glad we touched on it again, because I think it's a really important point, because it touches on so many different angles, that it's sort of definitely something I experienced very similar to you, that there was this sort of inverted commas but normalizing and assimilating, but then there's this kind of, actually there's so much in the world that isn't as it should be for people like us, and if you've got like some kind of studies and experience and skills and all that kind of thing that can make a difference, it's sort of silly not to bring that to the party. And it's fulfilling. You actually you know that what you're doing makes a real difference. It can become, and we've seen it with a lot of people in our world, it's quite contagious, because you don't just go to work only for the paycheck, but it's like really trying to make a positive difference, and it's a bigger motivator than money, I think. So a lot of similarities. So go and say something.
No, it's just a good example of that, I think, in terms of like the changing approach I've taken is, and I think some of the other guests have kind of talked about this as well, it's like now when I go to a restaurant and the restaurant's not accessible, I've got a pre-made kind of email on my phone with crosses where I need to change the the name of the restaurant or the manager's name or whatever, and it's in my phone now, and if it's not accessible, I just don't hesitate to send. It's a very polite message, but it's basically like, you've really got to have access, and here's a link to a ramp that you can buy, blah 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 blah. And that's kind of like a default of something I do now. And if you'd asked me when I was 18, like how do you approach that when you're in the situation and there's no ramp, I'm like, well, I either get carried in the restaurant, or I just don't go to the restaurant, but I don't let it faze me. That would have been my approach, and that in itself is just tiny, I suppose. Again, it's kind of like the realizing that actually there's a lot of things in this world that you can't just sort of shrug off because you're okay with it. You actually there's a duty there to actually create positive change, and actually it's a really valuable thing, not just for you and the people that you associate with, but for the people that are in that restaurant that suddenly go, oh wow, and I'm sure you've had it as well, that moment of realization where you see their face fill with doom when they've suddenly realized they've opened this lovely new restaurant, but they have not thought once about access. And you're like, okay, hey, how about putting a nice ramp in here, because you've done this great refurb, but you've not even thought about a £50 ramp. And then suddenly, they're just like, oh. But then it changes, and it's very rare that once you're actually engaging with somewhere that they don't want to help. And if they are that organization, then of course you don't want to spend your money there. So it's kind of, that change in attitude as well is kind of seen in sort of non-work life as well as work life, I suppose.
Yeah, Gavin's just said, it's good to speak with a soft voice, but carry a big stick.
Absolutely.
And I know that Gavin's very aligned with what me and you believe, Dom, that I sort of think that stick is also more and more around the sort of valuable and the business side of inclusion. Like, there's the right thing to do, the moral case, there's the legal thing to do, you're breaking the law, but like the stick is also it's a semi-carrot really, rather than stick.
Oh yeah, you definitely got to throw the numbers in as well, just to sort of add the little sweetener in that they might not know. And
the numbers thing is interesting, because you could just take you, right, and your entourage, because I know you've got your whole crew, you're massive with you, but like whoever you're going out dining with, you can say, well, we would have spent 100 quid in it tonight, and if we enjoyed it, we might come back in a couple of weeks. So if we do that every week for 20 years, Gavin's put a very large carrot. Like, that the lifetime value, you can tell I'm well in my market and speak now, but it's true, because that 50 quid ramp would get them hundreds, if not thousands, just from you. So even if they're like, we've never seen other wheel, because I obviously talk like this, but we've never seen a wheelchair user, then like, okay, well, partly that's because they can't get in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a perfect example of that was a coffee shop in Hammersmith, and I do like my coffee, and it was this nice sort of new kind of Australian coffee shop on Fulham Hellas Road, and lovely guys that worked in there, but they refurbed it, just opened. I said, oh, hey, have you thought about getting a ramp? They're like, oh my God, no, we haven't, but we will do, that's no problem. And then from that kind of moment, it was 1 or 2 coffees a day for me, and 4 or 5 colleagues probably started frequenting that coffee shop over other ones for the same amount. And so you're talking about kind of, let's say 10 to be sort of conservative, but 10 coffees a day that they wouldn't have otherwise got. And the ramp was 45, 50 quid, and the coffees are 2 or 3 quid. And like, it's just such basic maths for a lot of these entities. And as you say, one meal and they've made their money back, and then suddenly they're opening themselves up to an extra 20-ish% of the population. It's just mind-blowing that actually for a lot of these people, they've managed to not equate for those people, and not kind of really take on board that that's a very active and willing kind of potential customer base that they're ignoring completely.
We've now got, obviously Gavin says, a very large stick like carrot. Mark saying, completely agree with Gavin, that's why we created access rating.
Absolutely.
And Eileen is saying, more often than not, it's the only carrot they'll be interested in. Which is back to your point about the numbers. But like, I do sometimes feel when we talk about Purple Pound, 250 billion a year, like it does get people's attention, but I think there's still this like, but they're not all in my area. And it's rubbish, absolute rubbish. But it's interesting when you just take one customer like you or me and do the numbers on that, it's still worth it.
Yeah,
even if you
absolutely.
don't take the whole population of disabled people.
Yeah, I think when you sort of talk in the billions, it's like I think a lot of organizations feel that it's just this made up number that has no relevance to reality.
Exactly.
They just sort of glaze over slightly, go, yeah, like a large number, but I can't kind of even fathom how that relates to me. And then
Yeah.
and then obviously you do try and go, well, okay, in your locality, let's say we're going to attract 10% of a disabled population that shop in, let's say, supermarkets in the local area, but actually suddenly they're going to be coming to you as a preference because we're going to offer better access.
Yeah.
Take that 10% population of disabled people and they're going to suddenly shop with you instead of someone else. And then you do the numbers on that, and the numbers are still eye-wateringly high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're like, nah, that can't. That doesn't make sense. You're like, no, it literally does. It's just you're not like actually sort of equating for this
Yeah.
change in behavior. And it's fascinating that kind of the people that do get it and do wake up to it and realize how important it is, not on a kind of moral basis but financial, and it kind of also gives them like, everyone at the moment should be looking to all the different possible streams of income that they can possibly get to give them security. Everyone should be kind of trying to diversify not just their offering but who they're offering to. And I think, hopefully that is going to become more evident and more important, and you'll see the winners and losers in this, and hopefully it will become very clear that the ones that are doing better are the ones that are more open, not just to change, but to, open to different types of customers as well.
Yeah, totally agree. Very well said. So I mean, I think obviously back to media technology, we talked about the app, and I suppose I think probably the last thing I was going to touch base is the future. Looking at the future, I'd be interested. Like, are you still focusing on disability-related clients with your new business, or is it more sort of like why discriminate against some that need your help but maybe aren't driven just by disability? There's a thought there, but then just more generally, like how you think media and technology, as a disabled person, is going to make a difference.
Yeah. So firstly, in terms of who I will be kind of working with, I think to start with, I'm gonna just be working with people that I know,
Yeah,
just that need help. So people I've already had people come. Oh well, I
you
know
get
these
all
people
like
that.
planning, can't you?
Yeah,
About
yeah,
who you're going to work with,
and
but
it's just kind of the snowball of, oh well,
yeah,
actually I know this person that
yeah,
wants this put online or this website done or whatever it might be, and that's great, and I'm going to be kind of open to all of these things because that will help me grow and build and change, and then but absolutely, a part of who I am and part of the community and network I'm in, no doubt, and hopefully this will have overlap in terms of accessibility. I've just been working on the website now, and absolutely in there, it's kind of part of the mission will be, create something accessible, create something diverse in everything we do, and that
which
will,
arguably is more, if not equally, valuable with a kind of non-disability focused
yeah,
brand anyway.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you've got to run the fundamentals of what the disability DNA and accessibility DNA through what you do, and I'm absolutely going to kind of do that. Similarly, with the kind of people I work with, you want it to be a diverse group of people as well. So whether I'm hiring people to work with me, like if I need a backend developer or whatever it might be, again, it's about making sure that you're embracing that diversity as well. And because then we all know that you get the best results the more diverse the kind of team is that are working on things as well as for things. And then kind of to your other point about the kind of media and technology and where that's going, I think that it's still slightly up in the air, but we've kind of got so far knowing that, as we say, these laptops, these computers, these phones, they're doing a lot for people, and I kind of suppose my worry is that, you know, we can't forget that people should have face-to-face
I know. I
contact.
agree.
And so one thing that I've been kind of very much kind of wondering and questioning about is like, so when is the drive for actually creating public transport that is safe for those that feel that they need more, essentially shielding, but you know, we're not going to necessarily call it shielding now because we're past that point, but people that do feel that they're vulnerable, you know, how are they going to get out and about and integrated in society, and not just sheltered away in a corner, but do that in a safe way? And so, you know, I wonder what transport providers are going to be able to do. I wonder what shops and kind of different public spaces are going to be able to do to make adaptation to make those people feel comfortable. And, you know, like when you've got a shop that is only taking indoor bookings, for example, but actually people don't feel comfortable going indoors, then you say, well, you know, yes, that's what you are doing, but for someone that isn't comfortable with that, will you still do it takeaway? You know, that kind of thing about adaptation, and allowing people to still go out and about. With transport, if you have, you know, a train that's going to, over the next few months, maybe it will get busier and busier, but still you might have people that are like, well, I'm not comfortable going on a train with other people, but I need to get on a train. You know, are they going to have to start thinking about pods? You know, are they going to have to think about a carriage for those that class themselves as shielders? You know, again, that probably doesn't make sense because you put them all together and then that might be the most dangerous thing to do. I don't know. So, but that's, you know, above my kind of strategic transport planning brain can manage. But it definitely feels like there needs to be some sort of pretty strong conversations coming around, like how we still let these people fully integrate into a world that is now starting to reopen and re-engage on a face-to-face level, and making sure that those that, you know, need to still work from home, even though people will go back into offices, these people that kind of want to meet up with, you know, family and friends, for a birthday or christening, but they can't because they don't feel that they can be in a space with, you know, 10 others, 15 others, or whatever it might be. How you actually create sort of either, whether it's technology or transport or process, that means that everyone's still having to think about how they can effectively integrate and, you know, help these people, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that everything you said, I totally agree with. And I think one of the answers is having disabled people as part of the strategy design planning stage.
Absolutely.
But that's the difficulty, is that people are just doing knee-jerk reactions, and then afterwards they realize that, you know, labeling a lot of disabled people vulnerable maybe is not like the best wording, for example, but like more fundamental than just words. But like, you know, actually you can't get that the one-way system at a shop doesn't go via the elevator.
Yeah, exactly.
So like that kind of stuff is, why not actually get insights from disabled people when doing all the planning? Because as we come back to earlier, it makes business sense, but it just stops the kind of downside hazards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of, we've progressed with a lot of things well in the world of disability access and inclusion, and it would be such a shame to kind of not take that mindset and take that attitude and still apply it to, yes, these are times that are difficult and these times of kind of crises for some, but there's no reason why anyone's attitude around the value of inclusion and the value of good access, and how that should alter the planning, and that should always be fundamental as part of how people approach, you know, their response to these crazy times. And as you say, absolutely get disabled people involved in that process as well. It's a fundamental thing, but it's, you know, and it's simple to do that, to just get them involved in the planning of that, but so often overlooked.
Yeah, no, so true. Well, yeah, we're coming to the end, mate. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the viewers before we finish?
I'm not sure. I'm just hope everyone is safe and well, and of course, thank you to you. Like, I think that a lot of your sessions on here, this is, as I said to you just before we went live, it's a big commitment on your part, and it's providing a great spread of different people's thoughts, opinions, and it's been really kind of insightful. Some of the people you've had on, and yeah, as you say, just kind of sort of helping everyone steer this ship through these crazy times. So yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that, and yeah, thanks for coming on. Gavin's just said, superb guest and superb energy and positivity. I get more and more confident every day that we are becoming unstoppable. Thanks, both.
Amen.
That's
No
yeah,
problem.
nice way to end the show. How can people follow you, Dom?
Well, I would say my Twitter, which is at Dom Hyams, but I've been locked out of my Twitter.
Oh, no.
Well, not through any misdealings, but my email is just not. I can't access my email that I think has been like hijacked. So
Oh, wow.
someone's changed the email, so then I can't reset the password.
Oh, my God.
It's really strange, and I've tried to contact Twitter about it. So I'd say either Instagram or at Dom Hyams, or email domhyams@gmail.com. Basically everything Dom Hyams, and you'll find me.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions kind of after this as well, if anyone's got any.
Cool, thank you, mate. Well, yeah,
No
cheers
problem.
for coming on the show. Good to catch up as always.
Enjoy the blistering hot heat today.
Yeah, it's going to be another hot one, isn't it? I've got my desk fan ready for this afternoon when the sun comes in this window. So yeah, getting prepped. But yeah, everyone, thanks for watching as well. Hope you've enjoyed it. Some good interaction and engagement. So thanks for all the comments as well. And I think the what was it? The carrot, the carrot that looks like a stick.
Yeah,
is what we need. So that's a good outcome.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Thanks so much, Martin.
Take care, mate. See you soon.
Bye bye.